Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first Overflow transmission. I'm just so excited to finally get the hit to know what the first transmissions topic is going to be, and also I'm very excited that you are here right now watching it and receiving it. So, I was in the shower this morning, and I'm just going to get a little comfy. By the way, welcome to my bedroom. So I was in the shower this morning and I just had this zap of inspiration come through. And the message that came along with that sensation of like this expansive, the zap of inspiration, I would describe it, feels kind of expansive, and it kind of like feels like fluttery or sparkly or something like that, and there's like this movement to it, this movement to the energy. If you've ever read the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, she describes ideas and inspirations as coming from like the mystical realms, and they kind of land in our vessels, and we have the opportunity to either catch them and do something with them and start the process of bringing them into tangible reality, or we have the option to let them go. And if we do let them go, they kind of just go on to like the next person. So when I get that inspiration zap, sometimes it feels like there's this, no, I wouldn't say time limit, but this like window of time where if I catch it in that moment, the potency of the transmission is going to be optimized. And so right after I showered, I came out, I went upstairs and I put my clothes on, and I'm just like now sitting here and recording because I just want to be within that window where the energy feels most alive. So all that being said, the topic of today's transmission is the connection between being in creative overflow, or being able to access a state of creative overflow, and financial stability. So what is the relationship between financial stability and being able to access that state of creative overflow that we've been speaking about in our group? And just to review from my perspective, the state of creative overflow, this is what I was alluding to in the invitation letter. When you first joined this group, there was like an invitation, like right before you clicked to join the Telegram link, and I wrote a bunch of things about this energy of this idea of creating from overflow. And to review, I was drawing a juxtaposition between the way of creating that we've been taught. So the process was, I'm trying to figure out a name to call it, but I don't have a name. I don't know. There's creation from overflow, which is what we are amplifying in this container, in this group. And then there's like the mainstream way that we've been taught to create. And the mainstream way we've been taught to create is about, it's almost like this process of looking around in your reality, noticing what is lacking, and then creating something to refill that lack, whatever it may be. So if we are creating a business, like oftentimes businesses are created from this idea that, oh, I don't have enough money yet in my life, and so I need to make more money, and to make more money I'll like create this business which will make me that money. If you look out into the world, a lot of organizations, institutions, collectives, like a lot of those have been created with the energy of that. This is a problem. I need to solve this problem, so I will create something that will solve this problem. So creation from overflow is not the only other way to create, by the way, but this is a creation method that I have resonated with most in my life, and what just keeps coming up over and over again. But creation from overflow is different from the mainstream way that we've been taught, or the most common way I find, because when you create from overflow, there's no agenda present in that creation process. Like, you are creating to create, like genuinely. So that process will look like, it usually kind of follows, or the way that I've tracked it, it usually kind of follows like you're kind of living your life, nourishing yourself, feeling really good, and at a certain point of feeling really filled up and really good, you want to share that goodness with the rest of the world, with the rest of humanity.
Hi, it's me again. I just wanted to add another little sprinkle of a note. In this section, I was talking about when you create from overflow, it's like this feeling of goodness that rises up and then you just want to share it. I want to make a distinction here. When I refer to that feeling of goodness, I feel like goodness isn't even the right word anymore, because what I'm really referring to is this like sense of resourcefulness. Like I feel so filled up, like I feel so energetic, and I have all this energy to share with the world. So what you make with that energy, it doesn't have to be, I'm not referring to only creations that are dealing with good themes or like uplifting themes or like you could be filled up and feel that overflow and then pour out a creation that's processing like really dark themes or really shadowy themes of the human experience. That's not really what I'm speaking about when I talk about like goodness that wants to pour out. The goodness that wants to pour out is just like this, I guess what I was referring to is this like energy of like you feel good within you, even if you're dealing with themes that are darker, and if like it feels emotional or whatever, there's still this like enjoyable energy that's pulling you forward. And I think that's what I'm referring to when I speak about goodness in this context.
And the only agenda that you have in that process of creation is you just want to like express to express. You want to share life to share life. You want to share whatever your visions are because you just want to because there's nothing else that you would rather be doing, and the thing with creating from overflow though is that it is more of a flowy type of creation method that you have to surrender to, because you can't control it as well as you can control like hustling, because hustling, it's like your mind just decides that it wants to start taking an action on something, and then you just like kind of force your body and all other parts of yourself to just do that action. So creation from overflow, you have to actually wait until you are at that state of overflow before you express, before you create, and that can be quite difficult. So that kind of bridges me into the topic of this transmission, which is we're speaking. I'm gonna figure out what the title is gonna be, but so it's a little more concise. But the idea is that, or the concept that I'm going to be exploring in a sec, if I can figure out how to like say the title properly, but basically the relationship between being in that state of overflow, being able to access that state of creative overflow, and financial stability. So over the past 5 years or so, as I've tapped into my creativity, my relationship with my finances has also been processing at the same time. It's like kind of like I'm juggling both. And what I found is that to access creative overflow, it is really, really, really difficult to be in that space when you are not financially stable. And I want to bring this up because I know there's going to be people, there's a wide array of people in this group with a wide array of different financial situations. So for me, where I am right now, I am at a place where I have only just started experiencing some sort of financial stability, and for all of my life before this, it's been very like up and down and very unpredictable. And like for those people who have been like me most of my life, who haven't experienced financial stability, I want us to be patient with this overflow energy, because it is really, really difficult to access that state of overflow when we are financially feeling scattered or feeling unstable. Because remember how I mentioned when you have to get yourself up to a certain level of nourishment and fullness, and only from that state can you pour outwards. So finances in this world that we are sharing are a big big aspect of how we nourish ourselves, because it is money and currency that is what we use to purchase food for our bodies, purchase whatever, like body care in general. Just we need currency to access those resources that will then fill us up. And when you're not in a financially stable space, it can be difficult to nourish yourself, right? And I also just want to make a note that by financial stability, I'm not even referring to like lots of cash. I'm not even referring to like even having a full-time income, like where all your expenses are covered. And I'm not even referring to like the quantity of money that you have access to. I am speaking about the predictability of the money that you have access to. So the predictability of your income. That's what I have found is what makes that real difference. Because the thing is that when you have a predictability of income, even if it's like $300 a month or $500 or whatever, at least it's consistent and you know what to expect and you can manage your finances from that space. So let me paint you two pictures. So in the first picture, you have an inconsistent income flow, which means that you may be making a living wage, or like you may be making enough money to survive and to live, but it's coming in, it's dropping into your field, it's dropping into your reality on an inconsistent schedule. So if you're an entrepreneur or you're a freelancer or artist or someone that is relying on sales to receive that income, that's inconsistent income. Because even though you're making money, you don't know when it's gonna land, and it's really, really difficult to manage your finances from that space.
When I refer to inconsistent income in relation to like entrepreneurship or freelancership, I'm referring in this context, I'm referring specifically to some of the earlier stages of it where you haven't done it long enough to begin to see the patterns of your income, because later on in this video I'll be talking about just like probably in a few minutes from this clip, I'll be talking about like the ebbs and flow of business really briefly. And sometimes when you're freelancing or in entrepreneurship or you're selling your own products and services, you'll have like some moments where you're high and some moments where you're low. If you haven't been doing it for that long, it can be hard to see the pattern in that. But over time, like the more years that you do it, you begin to be able to see like, okay, this is usually when I'm on the ebb, this is when there's like a higher income on this season, and this season is when it's lower, and you can begin managing your finances around that. There's a stability that begins to make itself apparent. So even if you're still relying on sales and you're still relying on those like inconsistent income drops, you begin to be able to recognize the greater structure and find safety and stability within that. So just a quick note to clarify.
Alternatively, in the other image, you have the same amount, or maybe you have less money, okay, overall during the year, but it's coming to you at consistent intervals. Like for example, you know that you're going to be making like guaranteed or almost guaranteed, as close to guaranteed as you can get, you're going to be making $500 a month, so even if that is less than the other place or other vision that I was painting, even though the amount of money is less, there's a greater sense of stability in it that will make you feel more nourished, because you'll be able, when you know how much money you are receiving at certain intervals, you can manage your finances better, because you just know, like, okay, I know when my paydays are going to be, or when I'm going to be receiving this money, and I'm going to spend and save and budget, or whatever, however you like to manage your finances, off of that, because there's a stable environment for your money activity. Conversely, when you're inconsistent, it's just a lot harder to manage your finances, right? Because one season you could be really high and have a lot of income coming in, and in that season your money behaviors reflect that higher income. But then in a later season, maybe you're ebbing, like the ebb and flow. In a later season, you might be experiencing less income, right? And then you can't translate those same behaviors that you're using in the up into the down, and you have to constantly be adapting and shifting, and that takes up a lot of energy. So moving back to the point of this whole video, when you are in a state of consistent income or financial stability, even if it's like $500 a month, and that's like, if to be like 100% transparent with you right now, I am personally at that like 500 a month stage, because I have, well, I don't really need to go into the details, but just based on like pivots in my business and things like that, I'm at that stage. But at the same time, I'm also in the best feeling financial space I have ever felt, because at least that $500 per month is consistent to an extent. So I bring this up because when you are accessing creative overflow, a part of that, like, it's about nourishment, right? And when you have that stability of financial stability at whatever capacity it is, whether it's a lot of money at regular intervals or just a little bit, that predictability gives you this extra assurance and this extra sense of peace and certainty. And even though it's not, disclaimer, nothing's like 100% certain, especially not in the financial realms, but you know what I mean, relative certainty, that really helps you get to that point where you are overflowing, because you're not as stressed. When you have an inconsistent income flow, it can be more difficult to access that state of creative overflow, because even if you can get yourself up to the level of nourishment, like physically, like your body's good, everything feels really great, but there's still like this thing in the back of your mind that is worrying about where your next money is gonna come from. That is like very draining, and that is going to like oftentimes keep you right below that point where you're like overflowing. So I bring this up not to discourage you and not to be like, okay, if you have inconsistent income flow, you will never experience creation from overflow. No, of course not. Like, I'm sure you already have experienced it. I'm just saying that it, at least in my experience, you might experience it. Let me rephrase this question, or rephrase this conversation. Whatever. You get it. As you build up financial stability and predictability with your income, you are going to experience yourself in that creative overflow state more often. So if you are someone like who's still building up to that, just don't be hard on yourself with how often you find yourself in that space, because sometimes it takes time, and I'm not in, like, I know that in the future, as I build up my income, I'm going to be even more creative than I am right now, or I'm going to feel those inspiration zaps even more than I do now. And I don't feel like I'm in a rush, because we trust our timelines and we trust our unique paths that we've set for ourselves before birth, which is something that I believe. And you'll get there when you get there. And in the meantime, the really, really great thing to focus on is patience, is cultivating patience, and something that I like to remind myself when I get really annoyed with being patient or cultivating patience is like, if I didn't have this specific life situation that I'm in right now, I wouldn't have this opportunity to cultivate patience in this way. And yeah, you just kind of keep focusing on that. And ultimately, if you're continuing to work on yourself and you're continuing to set the intention that you do want stable financial income, or you do want this state of finances, or whatever state in whatever aspect of your life, ultimately life will lead you there. Like, you'll have to go through lessons and things like that first, but ultimately, if you keep at it you get there. And that's where the patience comes in really handy, because then you don't have an attachment to how long, or you don't have attachment to the timeline that it's supposed to take. So yes, thank you for watching. That's all for today. I hope this was helpful for you, and if you have any comments, please leave comments. And I don't really know where this video is going to be uploaded yet, because I'm still figuring out like how I want to create the back end for Overflow, the mystery school. So comment wherever I have directed you to comment, whether that's in the chat or whether it's like where the video is hosted. I will let you know. But yeah, thank you for being here. I'm so happy that you watched this video all the way to the end. And let me, also I would love to, if you ever have watched any of my videos and you have additional thoughts or downloads or concepts or contemplations that you feel like you can add to the conversation, that would be really helpful for other group members as well. I highly encourage that, because this is a co-created space, and I kind of see my role as being the person that kind of sets the tone and the energy, and then everyone fills it. Like I set the container, I set the base structure, and then everyone else helps to fill it in with goodness. So yeah. Mwah!